They changed.
And who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand too. Both parties lost in the last election. Trump won, okay? And I don't know if that's going to transfer. We should have won 4 more seats in the Senate. If you looked at the last 70 races for the Senate, 69 followed exactly the way.
I think it's Moore versus Youngkin. That's where I see it.
Youngkin would be excellent.
Youngkin
it's going to go
back
back to
adjacent, and then Vance and Jr. will fight it out for that crowd.
AOC and Bernie, and who's at the top of the ticket?
They're going to lead right now.
Who's at the top of that ticket, Kevin? Because if it's not Bernie, he's going to be vice president and then wait his turn?
No, it would be. Bernie's been running each time. I'm just saying who's in the lead right now. I don't think that's how it ends up.
But big crowds don't necessarily mean who's the right candidate. You know, when I started...
No, but it drives where the ideas are going to go. It's going to drive the money for a while.
A few days ago, I dropped part 1 of Bill Maher tearing into AOC over her anti-American rants. But what you didn't know is part 2 was brewing. And now it's ready. Sharper, bolder, and piping hot. Maher's back, and this time he's not holding anything back. Before we dive into the fireworks, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos that bring the heat.
And who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand too. Both parties lost in the last election. Trump won, okay? And I don't know if that's going to transfer. We should have won 4 more seats in the Senate. If you looked at the last 70 races for the Senate, 69 followed exactly the way.
I think it's Moore versus Youngkin. That's where I see it.
Youngkin would be excellent.
Youngkin
it's going to go
back
back to
adjacent, and then Vance and Jr. will fight it out for that crowd.
AOC and Bernie, and who's at the top of the ticket?
They're going to lead right now.
Who's at the top of that ticket, Kevin? Because if it's not Bernie, he's going to be vice president and then wait his turn?
No, it would be. Bernie's been running each time. I'm just saying who's in the lead right now. I don't think that's how it ends up.
But big crowds don't necessarily mean who's the right candidate. You know, when I started...
No, but it drives where the ideas are going to go. It's going to drive the money for a while.
It doesn't make them the winner.
Right out of the gate, Bill Maher slams the brakes on the idea of a Bernie Sanders AOC ticket, comparing it to the disaster of the Harris-Walsh experiment. But then it gets tense. Kevin McCarthy steps in, pushing back and insisting Sanders and AOC might be the future of the Democratic Party. Maher doesn't flinch. He stands firm and then drops a bombshell
You'll have to wait till you'll get 2 years out, and then you'll start seeing these governors that start showing solutions. You also have to know, what is the issue going to be? Are we going to have a foreign policy issue? Are we going to have an economic issue? And who's been the best in leading in that? But right now for the Democrats, who's going to lead for the next 2 years, the money is going to... AOC outraised everybody in the House.
And it's all small donors.
It's all small donors.
Yeah.
This is exactly where Trump was when no one gave him a chance at 17. He outraised everybody else. So that's where the base is at, right? And so what will happen, it'll move after the next midterm election.
Before I roll the Bill Maher clip, let me clear up one of the dumbest comparisons floating around. The idea that Donald Trump and AOC are somehow cut from the same cloth. Let's get real. Yes, Trump attracted small dollar donors, but that's not why he won hearts. People didn't back Trump because he checked some ideological box. They backed him because of his bold, unapologetic America First policies. He stood as the last line of defense against the chaos the DNC, with Kamala Harris ready to pounce, was planning. Open borders, reckless spending, and a full-on assault on traditional values. Trump was the firewall. AOC, she's loud, sure, but there's no real weight behind her words. Trying to link the two just proves how out of touch the left really is. One is a movement, the other is just a moment. Now, let's hear Bill Maher's brutal takedown of the AOC Sanders fantasy.
What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job done.
Maher doesn't hold back. He hits the left with a dose of reality, sharp and unfiltered. Yeah, AOC and Bernie are drawing big crowds, soaking up the cheers and riding high on progressive hype. But Maher reminds us, so did Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Just a year ago, they had the momentum, the headlines, and over half of Hollywood behind them. I mean, Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, the whole pop culture machine was screaming blue wave. It looked like a lock. But then came Election Day, and the Democrats got smoked. All the noise, the glitz, the media love, it wasn't enough. And now, Maher's warning. It's happening again. The left is once again confusing loud applause with actual votes. They're trading substance for spectacle, and that miscalculation, it could blow up the entire game. But just wait. What Maher says next sends a chill through the DNC.
The Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with
No. The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't.
But
she's
AOC,
very far left.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Because because people will vote for AOC and Donald Trump on the same ticket. Because they're authentic. No, because they're authentic.
I don't think that, Don.
I think you're wrong about that.
What people like about people like Trump and Fetterman is because it's irrelevant to her life.
But you don't know her life.
I know that being a gorgeous woman who I wouldn't even know was Hispanic in a city that has 1 million Hispanics and does not treat them badly.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that she was set down.
It implies it.
Bill Maher absolutely unloads on AOC, and this time, it's personal. He calls out what he sees as a phony persona, arguing that AOC doesn't actually connect with regular Americans because everything about her feels staged. According to Maher, she leans hard into this curated victim narrative, painting herself as a target of systemic oppression due to her background, but he's not buying it. In fact, he flat out challenges that storyline, especially coming from someone raised in New York, one of the most progressive, diverse cities in the country. Maher says it straight. South American immigrants in NYC don't face what AOC claims, and her story sounds more like a viral campaign than actual reality. It's political theater, not lived truth. That's why, in his view, her message might get loud cheers from Twitter activists, but it falls flat with everyday Americans. And just when you think he's done, Maher digs even deeper, ripping into what he calls AOC's fake authenticity. Watch this.
That doesn't mean that she was set down in a Hispanic ghetto in the Bronx and had to deal with that growing up, and that she's come from a working class family.
It implies that in some way she's behind the 8 ball because of that, and it's just not true. And so
I don't know if she's behind the 8 ball, but I don't think she's as privileged as many people who are in Congress right now.
Is that privileged or not? She was a bartender.
Yeah.
So I was a delivery boy.
But I'm saying sometimes, Bill, you don't agree with Donald Trump's policies.
No.
But that's what the people want.
Some of them.
Whether you like her or not, I don't like what she did with Amazon in New York, but I think AOC she's a Democratic icon.
Wait, did Don Lemon actually call AOC an icon of the Democratic Party? That right there tells you everything you need to know. If she's the poster child for leadership, no wonder the DNC is crashing toward political irrelevance. When your star players are built on social media tantrums, rehearsed victimhood, and viral sound bites, it's clear the party's out of depth. But let's not get sidetracked, because Bill Maher wasn't just clowning AOC's politics. In the clip we just watched, he completely shreds her origin story. He questions this polished narrative of rising from struggle, pointing out how manufactured and inconsistent it feels. Maher argues that AOC wasn't a fighter who climbed her way up. She was selected, groomed by a political machine that values optics over authenticity. That's why she might light up activist circles online, but when it comes to real world voters, the connection just isn't there.
If you think that's the direction the country, the
I'm not saying the policies that she espouses, that's the
Don?
direction, but I'm saying that you have to give the people who are out front speaking for the party, not the people who are.
If you think
she's evolving,
yeah, she's evolving,
and
as we all are,
and she is moving into She understands the game a little bit more, and if you notice, she is sort of becoming a sort of normal kind of Democrat in many ways.
Yes.
I think she's evolving.
Okay, great.
She's a very smart tactic. She's very smart.
Let's get behind that.
One of my favorite interviews was when AOC was talking to that lady and she asked her to expand.
About Israel-Palestine?
Oh my God.
Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist.
She just collapsed into herself?
It's literally like a 5th grader that didn't study.
Looked at that incident more through just as an incident.
And then they ask you about the subject, or you didn't read the book. Well, you know, it's about Billy and his dog.
What people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is...
But the crazy thing about that interview is that so her first comment comes off with like total authority.
I am a proponent of a two-state solution.
One little follow-up question. The question's like, well, what do you mean by that? And then you just see her get weaker and weaker.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
But what do you mean about that? It's like, I don't know what I'm talking about, man.
Yeah.
And she literally goes, I'm really not the expert.
Do you think you can expand on that?
I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
She just gave up.
Another one who's doing that, Gavin Newsom, who I've always been a fan of and thought always could and should be president. And then I recently had a conversation with somebody and I said, gosh, I've always been hoping Gavin would move toward the center and it doesn't seem to be happening. And then, as if I had just manifested it, I see this headline somebody sent me a few days ago. Gavin Newsom name-checked me in how much he wanted to, or how he wanted to move.
Because he's starting a podcast.
Yes.
Where he wants to talk to dissenting
everybody.
voices. Yeah.
So I'm like, thank you, Jesus.